And with Matthew Perry, I mean, these doctors knew that he was clearly an addict out of control. And, you even saw the text messages from the doctors saying, how much do you think this idiot will pay for ketamine?
Welcome back to Under Oath. Today we're speaking to hosts Dax Holt and Adam Glyn from their new show, Hollywood Raw. How you gentlemen doing?
What up, Jeff? How are you?
I got to know something because I've never heard this before. I was looking up, what is Red Coral Universe?
Red Coral Universe, it's a new platform where they've got all kinds of different media. They've got movies, they've got podcasts, they've got sports, they've got a little bit of everything. It's available on Roku, but it's our new home for our podcast. If you want to watch a visual version of our podcast, you head on over to redcoraluniverse.com. You can find us there or listen to our podcast, on the OG versions, which is just wherever you download your podcast.
So you guys are like the Simpsons for Fox then. You guys, you guys are going to be their breakout hit, and, we're going over there for you guys.
Well, we would hope you go over there. We got a lot of people checking it out right now. I mean, listen, we cater to this audience that people who love Hollywood or just are interested in the behind the scenes of Hollywood. That's really our bread and butter. Both Adam and I worked at TMZ for many, many years. And then once we left, we're like, what do we do? We've got all this knowledge. We've seen things that no one else has seen. We've broken stories that everyone on the planet has heard of. So, like, where do we express all of this knowledge? And so we started up Hollywood Raw. It's just kind of like a way for Adam and I to chat on a weekly basis about everything that we've done and bring on some of our celebrity friends to interview. But then also, because we've been doing this for so long, we're like, let's not just get celebs. Let's get people who are close to the celebs. Like, let's bring on, the PR manager, maybe a Hollywood fixer. We've brought on bodyguards, we've brought on celebrity chefs and flight attendants on private jets. People who are close to these celebs that can talk about them and say what they're really like when the cameras are off them.
It's just fun. At the end of the day, it's all high school. Hollywood is sports. It's a combination of sports, combination of politics. It's just so much fun to cover. It's you want to see who wins. It's competitive, and we kind of discuss that and go into that.
You know what I love about this show is I have a degree in journalism. I'm also an attorney. I do stand up. I host this show. And, the one thing about TMZ and shows like yours, it's like, how hard is it when you get that huge, let's say this huge story and you go, can we tell this? I mean, have you ever been in that stage where you're going, oh, we can't even put this out?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's been numerous stories that have never made air, and I think it comes down to there's stories that you want to cover, and then there's other stories that you're like, this has a yuck factor to it, I would say. But we don't really get into the yuck factor ones. We want to talk about the biggest stories that we've ever broken, I remember I helped break the Jay-Z, Beyonce, Solange Knowles video, the elevator fight. I was behind a lot of the Michael Jackson death stories and how that all went down. And so those are kind of the stories that we get into is like, how did it unfold? What were we doing that day? What did we do once the story broke? What was the newsroom like at TMZ when it happened? And that's really what people find super interesting.
I mean, when you hear something, because, I know doing what I do, that when I hear a story and I'm going, oh, that's just a cover. That's not really what that was. Like Matthew Perry, they were going, I knew it was something. And of course, it winds up to be ketamine. And I mean, how tough is it for you going, okay, we think we know it's this, but we have to wait. We're going to need something much more solid or we're going to get sued.
Yeah, I mean, we have to fact check everything. Fortunately, Dax and I have enough experience in this industry that, when we as a source, if we were to go to an outlet, they'll take our word for it because we're a trusted source and we've done our due diligence. But, now is a very popular time where people love blind items. Dax and I personally aren't a fan of these blind items. We understand the allure and the appeal of them, but we like to kind of give people be a credible source for them. We don't want to be duped. We don't want to be fooled. So, I mean, that's what's the difference between reporters and journalists. We're when we hear a story, we question it in every single angle. We kind of give it a bunch of different perspectives so we know how to cover it. For example, this past week, we had on a reporter, Jessica Fenn of the U.S. Sun. She broke this past week a big story of Andy Cohen for allegedly doing some sexual harassment at the workplace. And she kind of had to do she's been working on the story for over a month, but she was able to kind of get video messages and kind of get text messages and screenshots enough where she was able to put out the story. Even before the story was out there, she had to go to her lawyers of the U.S. Sun and say, hey, do we have enough evidence for the story to come out? And she did. And the story went public. We're the first one to talk to her. And people were really interested. Actually, the interview is doing really well with Jessica because people are curious how she got the story and what did she do to background check. And we also questioned Jessica about Andy's perspective, Andy's side. So it's a very unique angle on this story. We don't try to have a bias. Sometimes we have our perspective on it, and from our expertise, Dax and I have been in this industry for close to 2 decades now. So it's yeah, we always try to say we're black belts in this.
You brought up the Michael Jackson case, and you're dealing with this serious medication called propofol.
Mhm.
And I mean, the hard thing is that you don't want to make a villain of somebody who's great. So they find the doctor. They go, okay, the doctor's the villain because he was getting paid $250,000 a month to, give this, basically anesthetic to somebody. I mean, how tough is that when you go, okay, I can't tell the story this way. I have to tell it that way because we need to define our heroes and our villains.
Well, Adam and I, because of the Matthew Perry thing, we've been talking about this a lot lately, and how these doctors need to knock it off. Like, you're going to ruin your practice, you're going to ruin your career, you're going to ruin your legacy, because of your life, because you are enticed by a celebrity with cash or to be around someone super famous. Like, do not fall for this. Like, do it as it should be, not for the money. And we've seen this time and time again where these doctors, they lose their medical license because someone walked in the door and said, I want ketamine, give it to me. And they go, okay. I mean, this is what happened with Michael Jackson. And I mean, we could go through 100 celebrities where doctors became influenced and starstruck and started handing over prescription medication when they shouldn't. And we talk about that. And, unfortunately, the reality of it is, I think it's easy to slip down this slope where someone super famous comes in and they ask for a favor, and then next time they come back, they ask for another favor, and it almost spirals out of control, and you fall for it. And so we keep telling doctors, don't do this. You're going to ruin everything for yourself.
And I think with the media covering this story specifically, I think there's going to be so much gas behind this story that I think they're going to go really hard at these doctors. They're really going to the judicial system is not going to want to be looked at that they let a doctor go by. They're going to really prove a point with these doctors and say, you can't keep giving these people prescriptions if they're not justified, and to be more cautious. You have a very impactful position, and you can't do this stuff, and it's so dangerous, and they're really going to prove a point with this case.
Now I'm gonna give you guys the hookup on that one. Ketamine, for example, I had a case with a doctor who prescribed it, and the guy wound up committing suicide anyway. Ketamine is about $1.50 a dose for the doctor, and they charge $500 to give the shots. Now, the problem is a lot of doctors who have, their practices aren't doing well, they open up ketamine practices because there's no actual doctor that you don't have to be a psychiatrist or anything else like that. You could be an anesthesiologist and open a ketamine practice. And it's a way for them to get $500 a pop for every shot they give. So basically they're fast food. It's not only dealing with celebrities. You have huge ketamine mills that people are coming into and getting, they're running 50, 70, 100 people a day through there. So they're making $50K a day, giving a $1.50 shot. So it's not only reserved to the celebrities, it's screwing up our whole country.
Oh,
yeah. And with Matthew Perry, I mean, these doctors knew that he was clearly an addict out of control. And, you even saw the text messages from the doctors saying, how much do you think this idiot will pay for ketamine? $5,000? So you're talking about a $12 vial or amount, or $1.50, however much, and they're charging $5,000 because because he was an addict with a lot of money in his pockets. And I think that's the sad part, is taking advantage of someone who clearly someone needed to say, you need rehab, not more ketamine.
I mean, you look at typically, I write comic books, so I get a time to be around entertainers a lot. the fact is this, people will cater to the celebrity. It's not only just the rich person, it's somebody who wants to be close to them. Doctors like to be able to say, oh, yeah, this is one of my patients, even though they're not supposed to say anything. I mean, how do you say no to these people when, everybody's on you? Their lawyers are on you, their managers. I mean, whether they like it or not, even the Michael Jackson case, you're dealing with the insurance company wanted that doctor with him to make sure he could do the tour. I mean, how do you even control that?
Yeah, and that's the problem. I think it's people get starstruck and they go down the path and they can't get undone after they go down there.
It's a difficult thing to say no these days, and especially with these people that are constantly getting the word yes to them, whatever they want. It's an arm distance away, and if you say no, they could lose them as a patient or as a client. So it's a difficult thing, but I think you got to hold these people accountable. You got to hold them to standards that you would put to anybody else.
Now, you and I both do. We're in an industry that's very difficult. I also practice law. So when you say, what do you do for a living? You go, I'm a journalist, I'm a lawyer. How tough is it for you some days, when people have this feeling about what you do and you go, no, no, this is, you're just thinking a little bit of what I do. I also do this, and this.
Oh man, I mean, I have to kind of justify myself every day. I mean, I call myself a journalist, and then when I explain what I do, people say, "Oh, you're a paparazzi," and I go, "Well, not exactly. I'm not hanging outside these people's homes, and I'm not stalking people by any means. I mean, the people I cover are people that are in the news because they're either promoting a project, and it's sort of like the paparazzi days. It's now much different than it was years ago. And for example, I got Michael Keaton this week, but he's in town because he's promoting a movie. He's got the new Beetlejuice coming out. But when do you see Michael Keaton really paparazzied when he's not working? Never, because he stays away from it. So it's kind of, I don't work with Michael Keaton, but we work together. So at the end of the day, I'm promoting a project. And, if you want to be in the news for good things, I'm all about it. But if you do dumb stuff, it is newsworthy. I'm going to kind of have to put it out there and kind of put out your dirty laundry a little bit. It's just, that's what goes on because you are a public figure. But for me, there's always this perception of what I do is negative, but they don't see the positive. And also, like, if you don't do anything wrong, there's nothing really to worry about. And me, it goes to a moral thing. For me personally, I don't shoot people when they're with their kids or with their families. For example, I saw Adam Sandler this week walking in Soho, but he was with his wife and his two daughters. And, I like to say hi to them, but I like to say hi to them with my camera at my side, so they know I'm a good guy. And not everyone's like that. Not, there's some bad, some guys that would take the shots and try to go after them. But, I try to do the job with good grace, but I like let them see that I'm actually doing the job with a little bit of respect.
I mean, the thing about, I think, with celebrity and the value in it, we all know you pay for, some companies pay for this information, and that information is expensive. I mean, you get one picture in a weird way, that picture could be worth, $1 million. I mean, I know we're talking, that's not the norm, but I mean, a couple thousand isn't unusual.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say, well, at least hopefully if they have some ethics, they're not paying for stories, because the problem when companies pay for stories, people embellish stories because they want more money. They want to make it a better story. So, if you're a reputable company out there, you won't be buying stories. Photos are a different thing. You can buy a photo because that is something that you can see. You can know that this is factual. I mean, I do think that it gets harder this day and age with AI and people coming up with, manipulating photos and that stuff. So I think it's a weird time for us to be covering celeb news, because you really do have to question how authentic stuff is these days. With deep fakes and all of that, it's not as easy as it used to be to cover celebrity news.
And a lot of these times, a lot of these stories, these celebrities are behind it. And why are they behind it? A, they're promoting a project, or B, they want to control the narrative, which I totally understand. So, you work together with them, and it's, you try to say like they're trying to be as fair as possible. And I try to do it, and I kind of work with them. I mean, I used to be with an outlet. Now I kind of work on my own. I kind of work with outlets, but I kind of developed that relationship with celebrities. Say, hey, listen, I have this story. This is what's going on. Do you want to work with me on it? Do you want to help me out? Because it could go in someone else's hands that might not. So I mean, it really is just a giant game. It's politics. It's show business. So it's, but that's, for me, I'm an adrenaline junkie. When you get a story and that's going to become a worldwide news story, if you get an interview that's exclusive and no one else has it, I mean, it is a rush like no other. It's so exciting because you know that the world's going to be speaking about it. You know that, there'll be times I'm in a supermarket and I hear someone talking about my story that I broke. And I'm like, this is kind of surreal. And I almost want to jump in the conversation with, actually, guys, I'm the one who broke the story. Here's what happened.
You just mentioned something that a celebrity puts it out there. And I just recently, because I comment a lot about illegal cases, and where a celebrity or their agents or managers weaponize the media. Like, for example, in the Johnny Depp case, where you had Amber Heard calling a news outlet about a legal proceeding. And she goes, "Well, I didn't do that." And it wound up that she did do it. I don't know what level she did it on, or our manager did it. But I mean, is there, I mean, there's a give and take. I mean, you're going, okay, we're giving her something, but we're getting something out of it.
Yeah, well, I think the outlet gets clicks and views and credibility. But it is a scary world right now. You do see a lot of this weaponizing the media. I think a lot in the Angelina and Brad case. I mean, there's a lot of stories that get leaked out that it is very obvious it is coming from one side to make the other side look bad, because that is the only way that this information is coming out. But I think that's why we talk about it on Hollywood Raw, because it's like, this is the reality of it. People use the media. They can sit there and they can say, "Oh, I hate paparazzi," but then they call up the paparazzi because they need to be photographed out in public doing something to keep themselves relevant in between projects. That's what we like to talk about, is here's the reality of what's truly happening in Hollywood, because it's fascinating. It is a massive business. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And you've got people like, I remember one of the most, the funniest thing I remember was when Nicole Richie and Paris Hilton, and they were like crazy famous because of the Surreal Life. And she did like the Tyra Banks show, and she was like, "I hate the paparazzi," and she's crying, and literally the next day she drove her car down Robertson to make sure all the paparazzi saw her, to then drive to her destination. I'm like, you just cried about how you hate the paparazzi following you, but you went to the spot where they're all going to be, so they would see you to follow you to your next location. In Hollywood, you can move around without being seen. It is very easy to be off the grid and not have anyone take photos of you, and go to restaurants where no one is going to see you. A lot of celebs do that, and it's possible. And so that's what I always think is funny, is the people complaining about it, but then also utilizing it for their advantage, so that when they do have a project, oh, now I suddenly like the paparazzi. Now I like the magazines. Now I like the websites talking about me. That's what I always find fascinating.
Well, there's definitely a hypocrisy there, because, fame gets you work, but fame also takes away your freedom, but then again, you went into this industry to be able to work, and, fame gets you work. So it's a slippery slope when you're dealing with this stuff. We have about 2 minutes left, so I want to talk about your show and how people can see it, how people can get a hold of you guys, what's different in your show in comparison to when you guys did TMZ and things like that.
Yeah, so if you want to check out Hollywood Raw, there's a visual component to it. So if you want to watch us talking and bringing up the biggest stories, you can head on to redcoraluniverse.com. That is where the visual element is. Or you can download the podcast in podcast form wherever you download your podcast. But what makes us different is we're not talking about just the stories. We go behind the scenes. We dive deep. And like I said earlier, it's bringing on people that no one else is having on. The paparazzi, getting a paparazzi's perspective of what it's like working in Hollywood and being up close to these celebs. And like I said, the bodyguards are probably some of our most interesting guests that we have, because they're just saying what it's really like to work with Kim Kardashian and Kanye West, and what his personality is like, not so much in front of the cameras, but while they're in an elevator or while they're in a car together, and breaks that down for us. And I think that's why our show has become so successful, is because we are getting the guests and we're talking about the things that no one else is talking about.
Now, Red Coral Universe, I assume I can get through a website. Do I have to download an app? How do I actually get hold of it?
Yeah, so you can go to redcoraluniverse.com, which is obviously on the web, or you can put it on your Roku stick and watch it on your couch, in your living room. But it's a new media platform, so you can watch videos, you can watch movies, you can watch podcasts, you can watch sports. you get a little bit of everything, and it is really like an up and coming platform. But what makes it exciting for a creator is they give you, more access and more freedom, and honestly more income when you use them. And so that's why a lot of creators are headed to them versus like a YouTube.
Well, it was great talking to you both, Dax and Adam. Hopefully talk to you again. Be well, man, and good luck with everything.
Yeah,
Thanks,
for
Jeff.
your time.